Hampton and I'm with Great Rock Real Estate. Today I'm here to talk to you about leasing residential property. Whether you're leasing a single-family home, a townhome, a condo, or a multi-family apartment building. The anatomy of leasing. The things we're going to discuss consist of what makes a good tenant, how to market your property in today's competitive rental market, proper tenant selection, processing your applications, collecting your security deposits, how to structure your lease terms, condition reports, property walkthroughs, and funds collection. Tenant selection. I firmly believe that what makes a good tenant starts by being a good landlord. So offering a property that is marketable and outlining what your expectations are, setting your criteria, all of those things need to be upfront so your tenant knows what hoops they need to jump through to meet your qualification process. Marketing your property. As you know, we're in a very competitive rental market right now. There are more people renting properties than there are people buying houses. So when we have something available, we have competition in our area. So there are various ways you can market your property. The new technology is online. You can use Craigslist, Zillow. Zillow syndicates out to Trulia, HotPads. But what about advertising with a flyer in your local grocery store on the corkboard, or in the laundromat, or areas where other people might be looking that they're not looking online? Are you appealing? Don't use the internet and won't read your ad? So you need to think about how to be creative in today's market and making sure that you're putting as many options out there for people to see your property. Pre-qualifying your tenants. This is where the fun begins. We all need to have a list of criteria that our prospective tenants need to qualify. What does yours consist of? How much income do they need to make? Typically we see 2.5 to 3 times the monthly rent is what the household needs to make. What kind of FICO score are you looking for? What type of reporting on their criminal, credit, eviction history? Are you talking to the previous landlords? These are all things we need to know so we know who our tenants are when we put them in our properties. The application process. So once we have a prospective tenant who has passed that qualification stand, now you can move on to having them complete an application. Here's where we get all the legal information and we take that information and we run our background checks. We talk to the employers, we verify their income, we talk to their previous landlords. It's important to actually make sure you're talking to the previous landlord, not their friend who they put on the application because they know their previous landlord won't give them a good reference. Here's where we do all that due diligence and making sure that we know who we are putting into our properties. Security deposits. I've talked to landlords who sometimes say, well, if they don't have enough money to bring first month's rent and the security deposit, can I let them pay that security deposit over time? That's up to you. I mean, everyone has a different stance on that, but security deposits are something you must collect, and you have to have a standard, and everybody needs to meet that standard, whether it's important that they bring it to the table with their first month's rent, or they have X number of months. However you structure it, collect that security deposit, and I'm a firm believer that collecting it up front with your first month's rent is the best way to go. That way you don't have any issues once they've moved into the property and they can't make a payment towards that security deposit. So now are you dealing with late rent? How is it structured? It just creates too much confusion, whereas if you collect the security deposit up front, you've got that safety net if there is a problem with the property during the duration of the lease or upon termination of the lease, and it's not going to affect any rental payments during the lease. Structuring the lease terms. Quite often you'll see lease terms are standard at 1 year. I've seen some owners want to structure less initially, and some who like to do 2 years or more. So depending on what your objectives are, structure your lease accordingly. Some examples of a short-term lease is if you aren't sure if you want to accept pets, but you like the tenants, so you're going to let them move in and see if the pet situation works. You might want to agree to a 6-month lease, see how it goes. If things go well, you might want to renew the lease. If things don't go well, now you don't have to renew the lease. You have an option to not renew the lease and not much time has passed. Our suggestion isn't to go beyond 1 year in a lease, because things happen in the market that if you sign a lease longer than 1 year, you may be missing out on missed rental increase opportunities, or the tenant has been late, but you don't want to evict them, so you're just going to keep the duration of the lease going. Whereas 1 year is a typical time, unless you want a probationary period, you might want to do less. Property condition reports. It is very important that upon moving into a property, you walk the property with the tenant, note any issues with the property. That way, at the time the lease is terminated, you re-walk the property and you compare notes. What's happened in the property since you took over? During the duration of the lease, it's important to do periodic inspections and walkthroughs. A lot of times, if there's an issue or a maintenance request, you're in the property, take advantage of that time and have a look around and see what's going on and if there are any issues. As landlords and property managers, we have an obligation to our tenants to fulfill their maintenance requests during the duration of the lease. At the same time, our tenants have an obligation to us to take care of the property. And if there's damage occurring during the duration of the lease, you want to know that sooner rather than later and address it while you're in the property, rather than dealing with all of the issues that may arise at the end of the lease. Lease signing and funds collection. When you're signing the lease and you've done your property walkthrough, you're exchanging keys for cash, now's the time to get your money in good funds. We always request our first month's rent and our security deposit in certified funds or cash, no personal checks, because I don't want to have a tenant take possession of the property and then have a problem with a personal check not clearing, and now you have tenants in the property and you're already fighting to get your money right out of the gate. So it's important that you start out with a good certified funds and cash. You can accept checks as far as rental payments every month. A lot of tenants are accustomed to paying online these days, so whatever works there, but upfront, always get your money in good certified funds. And that's going to conclude our presentation today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this information helpful. If you have any further questions or we can help with your leasing and property management needs, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you very much.